Welcome to the Celebration of You. I'm your host, Holly Dowling. I'm thrilled to share with you incredible people from all over the world who are living and leading extraordinary lives. From overcoming immense adversity to discovering the secret sauce to leading with courage and grace. Their stories are going to bring you hope and inspiration. Now, let the stories begin. I'm so excited because, when you get the opportunity to highlight and celebrate incredible people that you get to meet that live all over the world, today is one of those really special days for me because I get to highlight and celebrate this incredible woman that I have the gift of meeting actually in Las Vegas last fall, but she is sitting in Australia, and I'm really excited to celebrate Kim Skubris. Kim, are you on the line with me?
Good morning from Australia. I'm sitting in Brisbane with coffee in hand as we speak, Holly. So it's wonderful to hear from you.
Oh, and you sound beautiful, and I can just picture you. I wish we were sitting together having our coffee because we would be.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Fighting to get a word in, I think, you and I.
Well, and I mean, when people find out, I have amazing listeners around the world, and I want them to get to meet you because the moment I met you after an event in Vegas, I have to say our conversation, Kim, stuck with me forever. And I feel like in my heart and in my spirit, you're just somebody that I felt aligned with, kindred spirit. But I want the world to know, and we'll talk about how we met and all that. But I think what's really fascinating is you come with such humility and such grace. And for all of you out there, Kim's had quite the career. She's been in television. Well, she continues to be. She's been a television journalist for over 20 years. And she's pretty much seen and experienced every imaginable story, I believe, Kim, that a human being could experience. And I think that has a lot to do with your story that I don't even really know. I just know that that's a part of why some of the decisions you've made in your life, you've seen and experienced a lot of joy and a lot of hardship from the stories you've had to share. Am I right?
Absolutely, Holly. And I think that's, I thrive on stories. And I think that has helped me develop a new chapter in my story recently, which is around the time, as you said, we'll go there on how we met. And I guess how empowering it was to meet you at a time when I knew in my heart things were ready to change in my life. I'm nearly 45 and I've been a journalist for 25 years, and I knew that there was something ticking inside that was ready to change. And there was a lot of things that were moving in the year leading up to when I met you at the end of last year that made me suddenly think, this is the time. And it was incredibly emotional. And I met you and I remember saying to you, that was so amazing watching you on stage. I do that back home as in being an MC, but to take it to a level where you're giving people almost a license to think about themselves openly and honestly and be really true to themselves for a few minutes and answer some pretty tough questions. I just had to come and introduce myself afterwards and say, Holly Dowling, I'm taking that back to Australia and really want to do what you do in Australia and take it that step further. So it really was amazing. And like you've said with me, and I feel so humbled by your words, I have had you in my heart.
Oh, well, I had no idea you were going to be sharing all of that, my friend, because it means the world to me. And, it is. It's like two kindred spirits meet. And I think when you go back to that moment, and you did share with me just, in a nutshell, some of the really big changes you were getting to make in your life. And I just remember that so vividly, Kim. It was just like standing there and looking at each other and then sharing this. And I thought, wow, it's people like you that, a lot of people aspire to have. Maybe it's the career that looks great. You've gotten to do pretty much what you dreamed to do with your life and living in a world of, being a television journalist and sharing stories. But wasn't it when you became a mother, a wife and a mother, that you decided some of your priorities were going to change? Is that kind of the transformation for you, or is there more to this?
Well, Holly, the thing was that, and the biggest irony of my whole career was the fact that when I started out, everyone said, oh, television is so hard to get into. And actually, ironically, I wasn't planning to be a television journalist. I knew from the age of 16 I wanted to be a journalist, but I thought I'd be a writer. I wanted to travel the world. I grew up with National Geographic magazines, and that was my dream. My parents are big travellers, and they instilled that sense of freedom, and you can do anything in us from such a young age, which I'm so terribly grateful. They're both very hard workers from immigrant families. My surname Skubris is Latvian, and I saw my dad work, multiple jobs to give us opportunities here in Australia. And I guess that it was through one of my lecturers when I first started uni. She said, your voice, just your personality, I really want you to go up and do some work experience up at one of the television channels. And she literally pushed me. I was this, as I said, a freckle-faced, redhead girl that totally not what I call the carbon copy, TV reporter mold. And anyway, so up I went, and I just fell in love with it. Literally day one, I went out on the road with a journalist and shadowed her all day, and I saw how she put the stories together. I saw how she talked to people. I saw the power of pictures. And what I loved was that you could pretty much tell a dual message with pictures and words. And rather than tell what the words are already showing, you had this vehicle to tell an audience double messages so they could watch the pictures and you could tell them something extra. And when you marry that together, it is just so powerful. And from that minute, I worked around the clock with waitressing to supplement my uni, and then I'd go up and do work experience, and then I got a part-time job there. And some days I would start at 6 a.m, go to uni, then go to waitressing, then drive up the hill to the channels and work the graveyard shift, come home at 2 a.m, get 3 hours sleep and do it all again. And that was my passion. I wasn't afraid of hard work, and I knew, and I remember at the time, I knew that the thing I would take from that whole journey, even back then, was so many people said to me, oh, look, that's really competitive. Why don't you look at PR? Why don't you look at, being a script writer or a speech writer? You won't get, television's just too competitive. And you know what, Holly? I'm really glad I didn't listen to them. I'm really glad I listened to my heart, because I'm pretty stubborn too. I think you have to sort of be able to dig deep a bit and dig your heels in.
I love that. It's so true, isn't it, though? I mean, you just said a very profound comment, Kim. It's like, I'm so glad I didn't listen to them. And people mean well, don't you think? They mean well. It's not with ill intention to not guide you in the right direction. But had you not followed your heart and stuck with what you wanted, you wouldn't have the career you fell in love with.
Oh, absolutely. And look, as I said, this past 25 years, I feel so blessed and privileged that I still love my career. I've never called it a job. It's really been a journey that has taken me, as you say. I've been to war zones. I've traveled around the world, chasing quite a few strange and crazy people that have escaped from prison. I've been a police reporter for much of this time, so I'm the person they throw on a plane to at the last minute to chase somebody overseas. I've also, I guess, what's left with me, I mean, I've interviewed a lot of what we call famous people like Kylie Minogue and, Ray Charles, and I've had the privilege to meet presidents and things like that. But I think what you would relate to as well is the fact that for me, when people say, who's the most amazing person you've met? And I can't obviously answer one person, but it's actually the person we probably call the everyday person, the person I met during a flood who dropped everything to go and save someone at the risk of their own life, or someone who has spent their entire life researching cancer with their eye on a microscope lens all day. They're the people in the past quarter of a century that stay with me. Yes, it's amazing to meet these dynamic people that you see on the stage and the screen and everything, but it's actually the everyday person. And I've taken so many life lessons from them in humility and courage. And it's actually helped me to face my own challenges, to actually go, you know what, if they can do it, so can you. And give myself a kick up the hiney and look at myself and say, you're not happy, even though it looks like you're happy and everyone thinks you're happy. Are you really, really happy? And that first thing came when I was 28, when I walked away from my first marriage, and that was massive. And I share it now because I don't want people to think, I've got no tickets on myself, but like you said, people think, oh my goodness, she's got the whole package.
Yep.
Well, I've had my own challenges too, just like everybody else, and it's important to share so that people understand that.
And do you know, by you being so humble and being willing to pull back the layers of the onion, that is the story. And you and I were talking earlier before we started the recording, and there is a gift in the everyday stories, the people that are doing extraordinary things, Kim, that aren't the presidents, right? They're not the people on the cover of magazines. But for you to, I think that's why I just really fell with this connection of, you just possess this pure humility, this pure authenticity. And it's from all of this you've been through. You know, you just shared that you've been through you're in a previous marriage and a divorce. And I don't even know that you and I have had the opportunity to connect on that. I've just started sharing with the world a little bit of my past, which I kept really under wraps for a long time. And the reason I've come clean and been able to start sharing and talking about it is, to your point, people get hope. They need to hear our stories, Kim, because they look at you and think, oh, what could she have possibly been through, right? And when you share and say, this too shall pass, you can do this, you can pull your big girl panties up and you can get through this, right?
Absolutely.
I mean, literally people out there, and men and women, can go, I just needed that. And that is my hope for today, for the people that will be listening, Kim, is somebody as extraordinary and beautiful as you, that you too have been through stuff. So just going anywhere you'd go with that, what would be one piece of advice from that? That was a big decision at 28 years old. Is there anything you'd be willing to share with our listeners in pulling back more of the layers of the onion about that time for you?
I think that I've only, just like you, started to share it because the situation was at a point where it was affecting my health. So I was on camera every day in front of millions of people. And slowly my hair fell out all over from stress. So the one good thing was that it didn't fall out in patches. It fell out, just thinned out. I had very thick, lovely long red hair, and it just literally thinned out within the space of a week. So much so, for 18 months on camera, all you saw was a very neat little fringe at the front, and it was pulled back in a bun. People just thought it was like that. That was incredibly debilitating because I learned a lot then about my body and my mind, about how much stress can play a part. And I guess that what I would say to your gorgeous listeners is, don't cheat yourself. Don't cheat yourself on your thoughts, because I know now, and again, I don't have tickets on myself, but I'm just saying in reflection, I know now that it took a lot of courage to literally walk away because I was so desperately in love. But I guess what I had to find was I had to be more in love with myself, and I wasn't at the time. And when I walked away, I wasn't, but I just knew I had to go. Something had to change because my own health and my safety was at risk. So I was doing all this behind the scenes of still being the seemingly bright and chatty and altogether reporter. And I look back now, I'm not quite sure how I kept that together, but I did. I really should have just gone and backpacked around the world for a year, I think, Holly. But I think what I would say to your listeners now, if you're listening to this and you're lying under the doona and you've woken up and you still feel like you've been hit by a Mack truck and you've had 14 hours sleep and you really just want to stay under that big comfy doona in the dark all day and not face the world, I want you to flick off that doona. And I want to get you to plant your feet on the earth. And I want you to take your first step forward in a new day. Mm. And I want you to go outside and I want you to have a look around you. And whatever is stopping you from being your beautiful self, take another step forward and go for a walk. Breathe in the fresh air. It's a simple thing, but just connect with the day. And do your best to actually say, I'm going to do something positive today for myself. And each day it will get better. I know it sounds cliche, but it does. And you look back, and I talk about telling stories for a living. The chapters in my story, I'm sure you feel the same, Holly. Some of the chapters in my own personal story don't even feel like they're from this lifetime now. And It's not that I don't want to acknowledge them. It's just that I've made peace with them. They've made me who I am today to get the most out of my amazing husband of today of 11 years and my 2 beautiful young boys and everything I'm doing, and just say, well, I'm actually embracing that now, because if I hadn't gone through that, I would not be the person I am today. And I'm sure your listeners have it deep inside them. And don't be afraid to acknowledge that you're going through something. You don't have to be a hero. We all have insecurities. We all have vulnerabilities. We all stuff up. Oh my goodness, I'm so glad I make mistakes now because, if I don't make the mistakes, it's because I haven't actually challenged myself enough. And that's how I see them now, Holly.
Oh, Kim, I am sitting here listening to you. And if you could see me, I know we're not doing video, we're just audio.
I'm in my pajamas.
Well, that's right. But you have your coffee. Well, don't worry. I'm not in my pajamas because it's the afternoon. But if I said that could be scary. But as I'm listening to you, it's so true. My eyes are closed and I'm smiling because you just said a few things that are so powerful. And that is, and we've both been there. You can become, I remember the days, Kim, when you just can't imagine that your world, that this too could pass. You think it's just the biggest black cloud over you, and you just can't imagine that it could be better. But listen to both of us, and listening to you say that, this too shall pass, but you have to find it within the deepest part of your soul, your heart, to believe in you. And to say to some people right now, Kim, that are listening, to fall back in love with you. People need to do that and not feel guilty, and to know you're not in prison. You don't need permission from another human being on this earth to fall back in love with you, because you were put here for a reason and you have gifts that this world needs. And I think probably you and I could have a really long chat over coffee another day and probably find a lot of similarities of when you find that the one thing I found in common is we were both in love with the same person, or so I thought, right? it's like, and slowly though, things begin to deteriorate. And you said something also when you were sharing about your hair. No one kid themselves, because there's a lot of research and science behind this, as you now know, Kim, but psychologically, things eventually manifest physically, no matter how, right? No matter how hard you try not to let it. That hair is going to keep falling. And maybe that was a manifestation that had to happen to get your attention. But I do believe our bodies can only handle so much before they truly begin to deplete and shut down.
Oh, absolutely. And I've seen that time and time again now in the stories I've told for, as I said, working with the 7 networks. So for your listeners, that's, I suppose, CNN. When we do stories here in Australia, I'll be linked with your networks over in the United States or in New Zealand or in the UK. And it is extraordinary, as you said, when you reject your feelings and you keep suppressing them, eventually something's going to happen, be it physical or an outside influence, that you meet someone else who shares their story, and you suddenly think, oh my gosh, I'm listening to myself. Why aren't I listening to myself? And you move on. And I think that that's been the thing I've felt so grateful for over the past 25 years, sharing stories and conveying stories, is the fact that I've got to meet so many different people. And that's what I just love. And I think that if your listeners can take some heart from that, and if they are looking for some strength, is to go out, even if you are feeling so low that you just really, it's so easy to become a hermit. Go out and sit at a coffee shop and watch people and have a coffee. Say hi to a waitress, because you know what? Maybe that day, if you didn't get out, you would not talk to a single person that day. But even a simple hi or a smile is going to help you break the pattern. And it's all just little steps, but it's so, so important. And I guess that's what I'm loving now, because I've got to a point with my 2 little people who are my life, my 2 little boys, that I got to a point over the past year where I realised it was okay to actually not turn my back on my career that I've loved, but to start to transform it into something else that will actually give me more time with my loves of my life, which are my children and my husband. So that's been a massive step forward as well. So I've only just turned the chapter in a new part of my life, and I'm really, really excited about it.
Well, and what's exciting is I got to be with you last fall during part of that journey, and loving that we got to connect over that. And, when you just mentioned, it was the best advice I've ever been given. It was years ago, Kim, but somebody said, when you're having a really bad day, the greatest medicine is to get out of self. And I remember hearing this from a very dear friend years ago, and it was get out of the house, go do something for someone else. And like you said, just smile at the waitress serving you coffee. I would go to a drive-through and gave a tip to somebody at a drive-through and just said, thank you for always remembering my favorite Diet Coke with lemon, right? Or Diet Pepsi. But it was that medicine. It's so simple, those little things. But I do believe when we can get so consumed in our black cloud and the woe is me, and yet it's the simple, tiny things like that that can have a dramatic effect on us. So in alignment with what you just said, and I have to go here. I know you didn't expect this, but I'm going to have to ask you because now you've got my curiosity up, right? Of all the stories and all of the places, and I know there's numerous ones. I don't want to hear about anybody famous. I want to hear about one of the ones that top of mind, one of the most extraordinary stories of an everyday person that has still stuck with you because it was so riveting that you went, wow, this person, if you could celebrate them for the rest of your life, you would.
Well, it's an absolute no-brainer, but it's a family, actually, called the Morecambe family, who live a couple of hours from Brisbane. So I live in Queensland, which is most people would know as the warm part of Australia, where the Great Barrier Reef is, that sort of area. And this story goes that over 10 years ago, a 12-year-old boy went to go Christmas shopping for his family, and he was standing at a bus stop. And in a cruel twist of fate, the bus driver didn't stop at his stop and he was left standing there. And sadly, he was enticed by a pedophile into a car and vanished. Now, I was one of the first journalists on the scene when we heard that a 12-year-old boy, a week out of Christmas, had vanished from the highway. And everyone thought he'd run away or he was being a bit naughty. His name is Daniel Morecambe, and I encourage your listeners to Google Daniel Morecambe, Morcombe, and I'm sure their computers will light up like a Christmas tree because this story did not just go nationally, it went internationally. Daniel Morecambe's disappearance could have been like tens of thousands of other children and adults that disappear in Australia and all over the world every year. But it was because of the tenacity of his parents, who absolutely would not let anyone tell them that their child had run away, that this became such a massive story so very, very quickly. Sadly, Daniel's body was found some 8 years later, but for 8 excruciating years, his parents did not give up. They started the Daniel Morecambe Day. They started stranger danger awareness in schools. They got government funding to completely change the education system in Australia to empower youngsters on how to say no. They just knew in their hearts that there was a much bigger story behind his disappearance. They had to bury their child without having a body. They went through the whole thing. I don't look at this as a depressing story now. This is the most incredible story of courage and tenacity that I've pretty much ever covered, because now, some 13 years on, it is still the legacy that Australia has a Daniel Morecambe Day. The colour red, which was the colour of the T-shirt he was wearing when he disappeared, is synonymous with children knowing that they can, run away, that they're empowered. It's taught in the schools. And they have turned something that could have absolutely crushed them. And at times it did. His mum faced alcoholism but pulled herself out of it. We were there every step. We all became very close, the original reporters on the scene. But she's very open with that. And what I find so amazing about that family is that they've stuck together and they've moved on, including his twin brother, Bradley, who was, imagine being a twin and growing up knowing your twin is gone. And for a lot of the time they didn't know where and how. Thank goodness they caught the fellow years on who actually snatched Daniel, and he's been brought to justice. But that story has been so incredibly powerful, not just here but all over the world, and has helped law enforcement with better protecting children in other countries. So it really has been an amazing story. But as I said, it really has been stories like that, and the constant. It wears down after a while. You do take a piece of that with you all the time. And I was ready when I met you. I was ready to start stepping back and looking at a different path in my life.
And you've done that. And I just have to pause and say thank you. This world is better because of such a tragedy. And I mean, to think that these parents and this family took that and embraced we can't even fathom what that's like if you've never been through something like that. And to be able to embrace it and know that the world is a different place because of their tenacity. I do hope everyone listening, I mean, I plan on it. I want everybody to start Googling this story. And I think this continues to be touching lives and countries and people, because this is definitely an epidemic. It's definitely not gone away. We just need to empower the children.
Absolutely.
Oh, Kim. And when I think about that last fall and that you were really stepping into a space of saying, I want to you're creating a new life for yourself without letting go of what you love, but just saying my priorities are shifting. And so 2 things I'd love to know is what has happened since we met last fall that you can share so I can celebrate you. And I know you said after you heard me speak, you're like, I want to take this and go do this in Australia. And then I'm going to ask you, so did you?
Well, I've had a couple of crazy bucket list moments since we met, Holly, and we literally spoke for less than 10 minutes. And I'm so glad I can give you a verbal embrace right now. And if I could be with you, I'd be giving you a huge hug. And I'm on the crying team. Of course, I get tears in my eyes, and I own my tears. I don't. I'm not ashamed to show emotion in interviews and things. And I guess that's why people like yourself, they'll open up to me. But I think that when I came to see you, we were at a conference, and I was working with friends in a new business, very different to journalism. And I was helping my friends who were makeup artists from the networks drive a new business in Australia. And I came to conference to talk to more of the people that are doing this business all around the world, and meet the amazing founders of the company and talk to the scientists behind the products and whatnot. And I knew that this was just something that was so new to Australia, and I was really excited about it. But what I didn't realise was going to happen in this journey was the fact that while I'd been loving these products and been using them for a year, and then was starting to embrace the business that was really starting to tick along in Australia, that I wasn't prepared for the personal growth that was going to come with it. And that's where you, my friend, came into play. And I remember watching you on stage, and I had to come and see you afterwards and say thank you, because I knew that I was already doing empowering people in the business with getting over their fear of public speaking and teaching them training tools to talk in groups as large as 20 and 30 at that time. But I knew that we could take it so much further and so much bigger. And so basically I had thought I was going to resign from my journalism. After 25 years, I was going to resign probably around this time this year, around June. And I went home from Vegas after meeting you, and I saw my husband, and I just burst into tears. And I said, honey, I have to do this now. I have to leave. I can't do the juggling act anymore. I can't be the on-the-call journo being sent over all around the world at a moment's notice, plus drive this business, plus be a mother, plus be a wife. I'm just getting to a point where my head's about to spin off. So I literally fast-forwarded my plans by 7 months, and you could have knocked my boss off the chair with a feather when I told him I was resigning. And he said, well, you're not. And I said, well, I am. And he said, well, how about you just sign an exclusive contract with Seven and come in and mentor the young journalists and work on stories as we need you, like when Daniel Morecambe's, when those stories keep popping up, as they do sometimes, and the story is near and dear to me. And suddenly, Holly, taking that step, I now am in a position where I actually have Channel 7 ask me to do shifts, and I choose the ones I do, which is extraordinary. Oh. And I'm now driving this business, which I'm loving, because I'm loving doing something completely different. And it's allowing me, the most important thing in my life is my time. And now it's allowing me to dictate my time. So I still love the work with Channel 7. I love the journalism. I love training and mentoring the young ones. But I am just adoring. I can be the soccer mum. I can go to reading in the classroom, then go off and do a presentation with some of the fabulous people I'm working with. Then I can come back and do school pickup and be there for afternoon tea and hear about the homework. I don't know if that's so good sometimes, but you know what I mean. And when I am away, we've planned it. So, I'm about to leave for 4 days and, you and I had to juggle our schedules to lock this in. Sometimes it is crazy, but at least it's foreseen. And I'm loving that. And look, there are days we're thinking, where am I headed with this? And of course there's days where it's challenging and you feel like, oh, is this worth it sometimes? But you do, is I love that saying, pull your big girl panties on and stop your whining and get on with it.
Exactly.
And it's fantastic. And I'm loving seeing the empowerment we're having with people who are being brought into, whether it's this business or whether it's doing media training, I'm doing public speaking. And because of you, I had the courage to actually share in front of our last conference. So after I met you, the next conference in San Diego in February, I felt so privileged to be asked by the company to come and be a guest speaker and share my experience with Care International, which some of your listeners will know is a very well-renowned international agency that's often first on the ground in times of natural disaster and tragedy around the world. And as a journalist, I've seen Care International at work many a time. So the company I'm aligned with now and I'm proud to be part of, actually, they sponsor and are in partnership with Care International. And that was the last tick in the box. I pretty much knew that was the path I was going to be taking. So I got up in front of 1,400 people. And that mightn't sound a lot to your listeners if they think, oh, well, she's used to speaking in front of people. But as you well know, actually looking down the lens of a television camera to millions, or actually standing up in front of an audience you can see is very different. And I was shaking in my boots standing behind that curtain on the stage, doing my Zen breathing, waiting to walk out there, and knowing I was also in front of some of my peers from Australia, but there were people from 17 countries. And I told a story about care, and I told a story about how I knew them. And I was so humbled by the feedback later, and it was a real bucket list moment. So thank you, because seeing you there, it was that first huge tick in the box for this new journey for me as far as speaking at a different level.
Oh, I am aglow right now. And I am I am so happy listening to this, because I would love to have been with you in February and seen you just fly and do your magic. And what I truly believe, Kim, and for anyone listening to know this, I truly believe that we are all blessed to use our gifts at the highest level. And so thank you for your wonderful words and being so kind and generous and gracious about our experience when we met. The reality is, I always say I'm a messenger and a servant. And if one person in that room of thousands, if their life could be impacted or inspired, then that is why I am here. And when you share a story like that, I just feel thank you, because it just lights me up. And I feel thrilled knowing that moment in Vegas last fall, someone's life in Australia who's doing amazing things around the world, but never knowing how much that empowered you. And I think that for all of us, I think it's important to know there's always going to be people in our life that are encouragers and affirmers. And when you get connected with people like this, don't take it for granted. Cherish it, nurture it, and always appreciate it, because I think these are the kinds of people that we're blessed to get to meet. And Kim, I'm going to give you this, and I'm publicly making this announcement right now, so I know you can hold me accountable. But that is that I haven't been back to Australia to speak for probably 8 years. I'm dying to get back there. So I commit to you, if there is an event, I'm going to give you friends and family discount if there's ever an opportunity to get back over there, because I would do it just as your friend to be there by your side. So thank you.
Holly, it would be absolutely wonderful to see you again and to have you on our home soil. I know that you would be embraced here so amazingly, and I would love for you to come out and talk to our family and friends and the broader audience here, because I know how much you're already dearly loved with your podcast here in Australia. But there are so many people who could benefit, like I did, from listening to you take the stage.
Well, the only guarantee or promise I want is that your husband and your former boss will not pull me aside and go, "You're the reason."
Oh, that's the thing. I think I was already. My husband knew I was already on the way. The journey was there, but you're the one that absolutely. I think it's like he was putting the earbuds and helping me this morning with getting, because it's earlier in Australia in the morning, and I said, "This is the lady. This is the lady." I broke down in tears with after she got to took the stage, and I said, "I don't do that easily in front of a stranger." And he just laughed and said, "Okay, off you go." So I was thrilled that you connected, and I was so excited to touch base with you today. And I hope that your listeners, when they do listen to this, have an amazing day, and they can throw off that doona cover and embrace the day, because that's all we want. You know, I love the phrase that strive for massive success instead of minimum goals. I love that phrase.
Love that.
And do that. But if you're in a really bad place, just take that little minimum goal first. Just take that baby step, and then you'll be ready for the massive success. And it will come. You've just got to believe in yourself.
Oh, I just feel like you gave us the best medicine for the soul. I cannot thank you enough. And I can't wait to see you in Australia and give big hugs to your husband and your kids. And I know this day will happen soon. Thank you, Kim, for sharing your beautiful spirit with us. Thank you, my
It's
friend.
wonderful chatting with you.
Thank you, dear. Thank you for joining me for another awesome celebration of you. If you were inspired by this story, please share it with your family and friends and hashtag Your Story Matters. I'd love to hear from you, so please leave a comment on iTunes. And absolutely, please come to my website, hollydowling.com. Leave a comment there too, and while you're there, pick up your free gift. Most importantly, though, just remember that your life is a gift from God. What you do with it is your gift back.